Welcome to Crimepedia. I am your host this week. My name is Morgan. I hope you are having a wonderful day. And with me, as always, is my very lovely true crime BFF. It's Cherry. Hello, Cherry. How are you?
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm good, thank you. It's very nice to be back talking all new things, new true crime this week.
Yeah. We missed you last week because someone was sick.
Yeah,
That person would have been me.
Yeah,
Not
you're
feeling
feeling
the
better now,
best.
though.
Much better, thank you.
Good.
Much better.
There's so many bugs and stuff going around, so I'm glad you're all better. It's all good.
It is. So, Cherry, we have a new episode this week, but before we get to it, is there any news or any updates you want to give?
No, I don't think there is this week. I don't think we've got anything exciting, unless I'm missing something, but I think all good. Nothing exciting on the horizon for us. I'm excited about a new episode today, though, because you've been teasing me with what's going on, so I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, so this one is a little older. So this is from 1974, and it involves nuclear contamination, and it involves potential foul play, and it involves a death of a woman by the name of Karen Silkwood. In 1974, Karen Silkwood was a technician at a plutonium processing plant near Oklahoma City. In November of that year, she would be killed in a mysterious one-car crash. Prior to her death, Karen Silkwood had been critical of the plant's health and safety procedures and had filed numerous complaints to the Atomic Energy Commission about unsafe conditions at the plant. Was Karen's death a tragic accident? Or was it her status as a whistleblower that led to her being killed? This is Crimepedia, and this is the death of Karen Silkwood. All right, Cherry. Karen Gay Silkwood was born in 1946 and was raised in Texas. She was a chemical technician and an advocate for labor unions, known for her vocal criticisms of health and safety practices in nuclear facilities.
Okay.
In the wake of her divorce in 1972, prompted by her husband's unrestrained spending and infidelity, the then 26-year-old Karen Silkwood relocated from Texas to Oklahoma City. Following a short tenure as a hospital clerk, she would secure employment at the Kerr-McGee Cimarron fuel fabrication site situated in Crescent, Oklahoma, where she was involved in the production of plutonium fuels. Now, after securing this position at the facility, Karen would become a member of the local oil, chemical, and atomic workers union, and she would engage in a strike at the plant. Now, when the strike concluded, she broke new ground as the first woman at the Kerr-McGee plant to be appointed to the union's bargaining committee. Now, entrusted with probing health and safety matters, Karen identified what she perceived as multiple breaches of health protocols. These included the exposure of workers to harmful contaminants, the use of defective respiratory equipment, and the mishandling of sample storage. She also expressed concerns about the inadequate shower facilities, fearing they might contribute to an elevated risk of contamination among employees. So there was a lot of, I don't know if we want to call it corner cutting, right? I don't know if that's what you want to call it, but it seems like this facility was not following safety protocols very well.
Kind of substandard, really.
Which, yeah, I would say so. But especially in this line of work where you're working with, plutonium and you're making fuel rods, I think that's something you want to take serious. You want to make sure that everything's on the up and up.
This kind of reminds me of the the opening scenes of The Simpsons where Homer Simpson has the the nuclear rod that comes out the back of his shirt. It kind of just straight
Oh,
away
yeah.
makes me think of that. So this is kind of Homer Simpson kind of stuff we're talking about.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
I wonder if the safety officer was called Simpson. That would be wild if it was.
If it was Simpson,
Can you imagine?
absolutely. Now we know where they got that character
Yeah.
from. Now, the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union alleged that the Kerr-McGee plant produced defective fuel rods. They would also stated that they would manipulate product inspection records, and they would compromise employee safety. Because of this, the union warned the company of potential legal action. Now, in the summer of 1974, Karen would testify before the Atomic Energy Commission about her contamination experience, claiming that safety protocols had been compromised due to an increase in production. So she's saying that they were forced to increase production at the expense of safety.
Yeah.
So this is not a good situation at all for any of the employees at this facility.
No, not something also in that sort of, all joking aside, in that kind of environment, that's not something that you can compromise on is the safety of your staff. This isn't like they're going to get a cold. This could potentially kill them. So not great. And also it will make her very unpopular, I think, with the
Oh,
seniors, because she's bringing to light the failings, multiple failings of this company.
mhm.
So I don't suppose she was their favorite person either.
No, absolutely not. No, in the facility, like the facility, they would maintain that uh, that working with plutonium was completely safe, and that no one should worry about radiation exposure.
Oh
They
no.
would talk. They had like signs up that would talk about how safe nuclear energy was, and how safe you know how safe their job really is. They would talk
Mm,
about how I mean, this is true. They were talking about how a thin piece of paper could stop radiation or contamination, and so the clothes that they're wearing is more than suitable. But what they failed to mention was how these contaminants can easily get into a body through your nose, your mouth, your
yeah.
ears. So they were giving their employees half truths, right? So they're
Yeah.
finding these studies that were found, and they're picking and choosing what they're telling their employees, how safe their job really is. Which, let's be completely honest, it's not safe. I would say
No.
even with proper garb, proper clothing, proper protection, it's still not safe, right? I mean,
No.
you have to be very, very careful when you're working in this environment. Now, what's Karen's job? She was actually in the fabrication. She was actually doing things like sanding and buffing these fuel rods. So
Right.
you got to think about the number of like small particles that are
Yeah.
everywhere in her work area and
Yeah.
workstation. So any sort of faulty equipment, and if they're saying that they have faulty respirators, I mean, how many particles are getting into their lungs and into their bodies
Yeah.
if
Of
their
course.
respiratory systems aren't working
Yeah.
properly?
That's scary.
It is very scary. Now, on November 5th, 1974, during a routine self scan, Karen would discover that her body's plutonium contamination levels were nearly 400 times over
Oh
the
God.
permissible limit.
400 times.
400 times. Yes.
Jeez.
Yes. It's absolutely insane. So, with this, she would then undergo decontamination at the facility
Oh
and was
no.
given a kit to collect samples of her urine and feces for additional tests. Now, despite the presence of plutonium on the inside of her gloves, the absence of holes indicate that the source of the contamination was external and not from her direct work environment.
I I don't understand
So,
that.
so she already had been contaminated before this
Before.
contamination. So
Wow.
so so she had already been contaminated, and
Yeah.
that's how this plutonium radiation was
Was
found
so high.
inside of things like her gloves. Yeah,
Oh
but 400
no.
times.
That's
I mean, that's
crazy.
yes, absolutely crazy. Like I I don't know. Like I would. What do you do when you
Yeah,
get those readings?
exactly.
Right?
400 times. That I mean, you're going to panic quickly. That's a lot. I mean, I would be thinking, "Oh god, the machine's broken. Let's do that again." 400
Mhm.
times is ridiculous. That's
That
really
is a
scary
lot.
stuff. Yeah, that's scary. So what did she
I mean, but
do?
even after this, well, here after this, I don't think that the plant really considered it to be a big deal because she ended up like going home
Oh my god.
and like it was no big deal.
Okay, bye. Go home and get some rest. Don't worry about your
Yeah,
400 times contamination inside your body. Don't worry about that, all the dangerous
yeah,
chemicals and stuff that you've been contaminated with. Just go home, put your feet up. You'll be fine tomorrow.
yeah,
That's crazy.
exactly. Now, the following day after this contamination scare, I don't even want to call it a contamination scare because she was absolutely contaminated at this point.
Yeah.
She would go back to work, and despite only handling paperwork that day, her contamination levels would remain high, necessitating another thorough decontamination process. So she goes
Oh,
back to work the next day, still contaminated after being decontaminated the day before,
yeah.
but it's still at a very high level.
God, I'd be
Now
panicking.
on Yeah, so then now we're on November 7th. And on November 7th, after arriving at the plant, she once again had alarmingly high contamination levels,
Hmm.
right? And it's believed that some of this contamination was also being released from air coming from her lungs. So
Jeez.
she is fully contaminated. She has
Yeah.
this plutonium 239 in her lungs. She has it on her body. It's everywhere.
And
So
so I mean, if she's in close proximity with somebody else, so she's in bed, that I'm guessing that coming out of her lungs, that could potentially contaminate the person she's sleeping next to, surely.
yes,
Oh wow!
absolutely.
And they just let her go home, just carry on to go just
Yeah.
go and contaminate your family. That's
Hmm.
crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I can't believe that. That's mad.
Yeah. Now, a specialized health physics team would actually escort her home that day, and they would end up discovering significant traces of plutonium, particularly in the bathroom and refrigerator. Okay.
Oh wow.
Because of this, they would then have to decontaminate her whole residence,
Yeah,
which would lead to the disposal of some of her belongings, which is good. I mean, if
it's better than death.
if you have, yeah, I mean, you don't want this stuff around. But I
No.
mean, I think this is already long enough. I mean,
Yeah.
if this is day 3 and she's has significant levels, and now you're like, okay, now we need to go ahead and like decontaminate everything. So think about this: like you get decontaminated at work, they send you home, your home is contaminated, so you're just picking everything back up, going back to work, and at this point, you gotta start thinking like, what else in this facility is contaminated now, right?
Yeah, and also I would have thought, I don't have any knowledge of this personally, but I would have thought that in a case of what I would think in a case of contamination would be she would be
Hmm.
decontaminated, then sent off to a segregated unit until
Yeah.
there are no more levels. But then because her levels were so high, I would have thought they would have then had to go to her house, test anyone that lives
Hmm.
in her house, test her house there and then
Yeah.
before she's allowed to return back to her residence. Because otherwise, you're just going
Yes.
round in circles. You're just recontaminating her every time she goes home.
Yeah.
I'm
And
not a safety officer, but that doesn't seem like too far fetched of a safety plan to me. So why aren't they
right.
already doing this?
I mean, and think about it. Like, how many other places would be contaminated at this point if
Yeah,
she's out and about, right? So, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for someone to leave work and, go to a store, go to a
yeah.
grocery store, go out to eat, go
Go and get
visit a
petrol.
friend, go visit
Yeah,
family. Yeah, anything, right? So, so why would you? Yes, I understand. Uh, you know, you go through a decontamination process, but wouldn't you then test before you actually release her out into
yeah.
the public?
100%, because you wouldn't want a risk of any like level of any level of contamination whatsoever, let alone the fact that her levels are still really high. You're putting everybody else at risk. That doesn't make any sense to
Yeah,
me.
it does not at
Wow.
all. I mean, I've read reports and
Mm.
statements that talked about the security at the facility and
Mm-hmm.
how absolutely lax it was, and how
Yeah.
it wouldn't be out of question for someone to simply grab some plutonium and walk it out the door.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Surely
So
there's
this is a
laws.
huge
There
risk.
must be laws against this. Surely they're
Oh,
breaking
100%.
they're breaking some really, really bad protocols there. That's really bad. I can't believe it in something so
Absolutely.
serious, how they're allowed to be lapsed like that. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. I, it's absolutely insane. Now, after being, you know, found to still be contaminated and seeing that her residence was also contaminated, Karen, along with her boyfriend Drew Stevens and her roommate Dusty Ellis, were then transported to the Los Alamos National Laboratory for comprehensive tests to determine contamination's full extent in their bodies.
Good.
So there we go. Now you're taking it out of this plant's hands, and now you're going to a national laboratory. They're going to figure this out. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
Now, during the 3-day period of Karen's contamination, there were uncertainties about its origin. Now, Karen would speculate that the contamination in her bathroom might have resulted from accidentally spilling her urine sample on the morning of November 7th. Okay. Now, this theory would align with the findings that the samples collected at her home showed exceedingly high contamination levels, whereas those collected in the new containers at the plant as well as at Los Alamos indicated significantly lower levels. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
So they sent her home to do these tests, right? They're like, here, go
Herself.
home. Yeah. Here
That's
you go. Do a
crazy.
urine
That is
test. Here you
crazy.
go. Pee in this and then bring it back to us. And so when she was there, she did say that she'd spilt her sample. And so that would,
Everywhere.
I mean, that does make sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, Karen would maintain that her contamination occurred at the plant, which I think everyone at this point knows it absolutely happened.
Well, yeah, I don't think she got it at the grocery store.
But listen to this. Despite saying, yeah, this happened at the plant, the Kerr McGee's management would accuse her of self contamination as a tactic to tarnish the company's image.
Clever. Very clever. That's good tactics.
They would state that she was a lunatic, okay, that may have purposely smeared plutonium on a bologna and cheese sandwich, which was found in her refrigerator.
I can see what they're doing. I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to cover up their huge failings by,
Yes.
blaming her for doing the sabotaging. So yeah, I can see
Mm-hmm.
that this has obviously got higher up and somebody's gone, "Oh my god, we are in some serious shit. Let's do some damage
Yep.
limitation and we'll just blame her for being a nutter." That's just not
Mm-hmm.
it's clever, but it's
Yep.
not acceptable, is it?
Yeah. I mean, they would have, like I said earlier about the security being lax. They would actually admit, like, yeah, at this
Mm.
time, security was really lax, and it'd be very easy for employees to remove finished plutonium pellets from the facility.
Oh my goodness, that's just crazy.
It is very crazy. Now, this is what's crazy too. Okay. Now, the specific type of the soluble plutonium, which was detected in Karen's body, was linked to a production area that she had not accessed for 4 months. And the pellets from that area were secured in the plant's vault.
Wow. Okay.
So there's no way that she is
No.
getting into the plant's vault. She
No.
smeared it on a bologna and cheese sandwich and bringing it home.
I don't even understand why
Th-
she would do that. Why would she purposely contaminate herself? I don't really understand that. It's not really doesn't sound to me like a very good master plan. I can't really see what they think she's
well,
trying to achieve.
yeah, to get the plant shut down. Is that what they're
Yeah.
saying? Because this is her job. I mean,
Exactly.
she wants to be able to work in a safe environment. She wants her coworkers to work in a safe environment. So, you know, taking a hit and, contaminating yourself,
Hmm.
that's that doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't
I
make sense
mean,
to me
I could be
either.
wrong. I don't know if that's a great game plan or not, but to me, that sounds like a terrible plan.
And surely, if you were going to do that, you would do it with the stuff that you're readily holding on to, the stuff that you are
Hmm.
using in your everyday workplace, because then it's very easy to trace. If you're going to go and do it from something that's in a vault that you have no access to, doesn't really prove your point that your job is not safe. So I don't
Yeah,
think that makes very good sense, to be honest.
it doesn't. No, it does not.
No.
Now, on November 12th, Karen, Dusty Ellis, and Drew Stevens made their way back to Oklahoma City from Los Alamos. The following day, both Karen and Dusty would return to work, albeit with restrictions barring them from any radiation related tasks. Okay. That evening, after her shift, Karen would attend a union gathering at the Hub Cafe in Crescent, Oklahoma. A fellow participant would later confirm that Karen had brought along with her a binder with documents and photos that she said would demonstrate the extent of the safety problems at the plant. The meeting concluded around 7 p.m., after which Karen departed alone in her Honda Civic. She would then head out on the 30-mile journey back to Oklahoma City with plans to meet with Stephen Wadka, a representative from the National Office of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union, and David Burnham, who was a New York Times reporter who was interested in her case. Okay. So he was interested. He wanted to find out more information. He was preparing to write a story about Karen and about the issues at the plant.
Okay.
At 8:05 p.m., the Oklahoma State Highway Patrol was notified of a single car accident 7 miles south of Crescent, Oklahoma. When the responding officer arrived at the scene, they found that Karen's Honda Civic had run off the road and hit a concrete culvert. Karen Silkwood would be pronounced dead at the scene for multiple injuries. Now, the car contained none of the documents or photos that she had been holding in the union meeting at the Hub Cafe.
Hmm.
So those were all gone. Everything was gone.
Convenient. Very
Yes.
convenient.
Now, the officer at the scene would claim that he found 1 or 2 tablets of the sedative methaqualone, which is Quaaludes,
Quaaludes,
in the
yeah.
car, and would state that he remembered finding cannabis. The police report would indicate that this was a classic falling asleep at the wheel situation, and
Okay, so there was no
that she
brakes
had
applied. Yeah.
now a blood test performed as part of the autopsy would show that Karen did have traces of alcohol, as well as 0.35 milligrams of methaqualone,
Right.
Quaalude, per 100 milliliters of blood at the time of her death. Now, this amount was almost twice the recommended dosage for inducing
Yeah.
drowsiness. They also found about 50 milligrams of undissolved methaqualone remaining in her stomach. So that is a whole
That's a
lot of Quaaludes,
lot.
if you ask me.
Yeah. And would
So
you
this is
knowingly take those before you're driving? You know, if you're going to a meeting, and would you take it right then? Are those on prescription? The
yeah. Oh,
methaqualone.
yeah.
Oh, so they're
Yes.
the thing you'd have to get a prescription for. You couldn't just go and buy them over
I
the
believe,
counter.
yeah.
That's
Well,
interesting.
but I think so. But I'm sure that you could also buy it other ways, right?
Yeah,
Non
yeah,
legal ways.
yeah. Because it'll
Um,
be interesting to see her
I
medical file, see whether she's ever had that before.
She had it.
You know, whether she's ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I don't. Yeah, but I mean, like you said, like there's 2 things. Why would you knowingly take that before you
Yeah,
are gonna drive, right?
yeah,
And why would you take that knowing that you are about to meet with a
yeah.
representative from
Exactly,
the National Union's office, as well as a New
exactly.
York Times reporter,
Yeah,
right?
you're not going to, are
To
you?
me, you're not. I mean, you'll take it later on when you're home, when you want
Mm.
to go to sleep but you don't take it before you drive. You don't take it before another meeting, especially
No, because
in
it's
that amount, that
important.
quantity.
That's right. It's an
Yeah.
important meeting that she's been obviously fighting for. She's going to be going and finally speaking to a journalist about what's going on. The last thing she's going to do is
Mhm.
take something that's going to make her drowsy. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Very
So, I
interesting.
mean, the thing that is interesting too is the fact that she did have an undissolved tablet in her
Yeah.
stomach. So I could see if it was like if someone had, and I don't know if it's even possible, had crushed it up and put it into a drink,
Yeah.
and then she crashes. But to have a undissolved tablet, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
so how does
A
that
whole
get there?
tablet.
Does is it
Yeah.
is this something she's actually taking? Is someone else giving her something, saying, "Hey, this is
Paracetamol.
whatever."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Is this a Tylenol? Is this a
Yeah.
pain reliever? We don't know. We don't know. But
No.
what we do know is she ended up crashing and she went into a concrete wall, and we that's
And
what we know, right?
mysteriously, all of the files and paperwork that she was carrying to do with this case just
Gone.
spontaneously dissolved.
Yes.
That's
Hmm.
it's too
Which
strange.
and I, and this is something that she would have, especially with this meeting that she
Mm.
has with
Hmm.
the reporter. She's gonna bring this with her so that
Of
she can
course.
show him, hey, this is my findings, this is the information I have.
Mm.
This is gonna help you with your story. But for all this documentation just to disappear,
Mm.
it's
It's
very
really
suspicious, right?
suspicious. Very.
It kind of reminds me of the case we did about Dorothy Kilgarren, right?
Yeah, it does. Really, that does come straight to mind.
Where she had a bunch of documentation, paperwork in regards to the Kennedy assassination with her
Yeah.
discussion or her interview with Jack Ruby, and her was I believe was a drug overdose, right?
It was it was
And
like, was that sedatives? I think that was the same, wasn't
I
it? It was
think it's the same
some kind of
thing, right?
sedatives. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. I don't know what it is about sedatives and documentation going missing, but that just seems
Mm.
like a little suspicious to me, right?
Very, I agree.
Now, despite the findings of the police as well as the autopsy, some have theorized that Karen's car may have been rammed from behind before running off the road. Okay.
Okay.
Now, remember we said that she had a Honda Civic. This was a 1974 Honda Civic, brand new car. Okay.
Right.
So there had been no reported accidents with the car. Her family, friends, boyfriend stated that she had not had any sort of damage to it, that it was
No.
brand new, that it was clean. Investigators would actually note that they did find damage on the rear of Karen's car.
Okay.
That, and like I said, this damage was not present before the crash. And
Okay.
because this crash was entirely a front end collision, there is no explanation as to
No.
why there was damage found on the rear of the vehicle. Okay. They would also find that fresh skid marks found at the scene indicate that Karen had attempted to get back on the road before crashing. So if
Ah,
she had fallen
okay.
asleep at the wheel, the belief is she fell
She
asleep in the
woke
wheel
up
and she
before she
hit
cracked.
hit the
Yeah.
maybe. I mean, so that's the only thing. Like, okay, did she wake up before she crashed and she swerved back onto the road
Yeah.
and then hit the culvert? Now, a microscopic examination of the rear of Karen's car showed paint chips that could have only come from a rear impact by another car.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
So obviously there's paint transfer between
Yeah.
one car and her car. And like I said, there had been no previous collisions of any
No.
kind that Karen had with the car, and that it was brand new, and that there had never been any sort of insurance claims filed on the vehicle. So there's no reason that there should be damage and paint transfer on the back bumper.
That's crazy.
Is it possible though? Here, let me pass this along to you. Is it possible that she did fall asleep? She tried to swerve back onto the road. Another car hit her, drove her back into the culvert, concrete culvert, and then that car took off. So maybe it wasn't necessarily purposeful,
Yeah.
but whoever did, hit her, freaked out and just took off. I mean, that's a possibility.
And also another possibility could be that the accident happened earlier in the evening and she
Mm-hmm.
was hurt, so took something to try and
Maybe.
maybe feel a bit better, and then she's had an
Yeah.
accident because of the Quaaludes that she's taken. Then she's had an accident because of that. I mean, it could be that you'd have to think of every single evidential possibility. You'd have to think of it like that. So
Mm-hmm.
you do have that. Either she fell asleep completely and then she regained consciousness and then hit the culvert, or somebody has rear-ended her and she's hit the culvert, or the accident
Mm-hmm.
happened earlier in the evening, and because of that she willingly took some kind of what she believed to be pain relief, but it's had adverse effect and it's made her fall asleep or something. There's a few
Mm-hmm.
possibilities there, isn't there? But there's definitely evidence that there was some kind of collision with another vehicle at some point that
Yes.
evening, because if her boyfriend is saying no, the car was fine when she left, then in between that time of her leaving and then the time of the police finding her, some kind
Right.
of collision has occurred at some point.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that's 100%
Yeah.
that happened. Something happened. We
Yeah.
don't know when, but it seems like that would have occurred on that day.
But like the thing is, your suspicious mind, your natural suspicious mind in doing the jobs that we do, is that you think
Mm-hmm.
that, well, hang on a minute, then something nefarious has happened. Yes, it could be something completely innocent, but then when you take the paperwork side of things and you see that everything that she had on this company and everything she was
Yeah.
taking to a reporter to report this company is now missing, that then brings up the red flags and the markers for something isn't quite as simple as it seems. This doesn't seem to be,
Mm-hmm.
to me, as simple as just an accident. This
Yeah.
obviously we do this and we naturally think suspiciously, and I probably would not think so suspiciously had all that paperwork not have been missing. That's what makes it suspicious to me. Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. Now, the other thing that makes it suspicious and what made family members believe that there might have been foul play
Mm.
was the fact that just prior to her death, Karen had begun to she began receiving several threatening phone calls.
Oh,
So
okay.
someone
Yeah.
had been threatening her with harm prior to her death.
Right. So again, now the
So,
evidence is stacking up for suspicious. Now we're starting to get calls. She dies in mysterious circumstances. The paperwork seems to be missing. Now I would start to be looking at people who were employed or owned this
mhm.
facility, I think.
I mean, what I don't understand and what I can't figure out is why or how there could be this conspiracy happening where, because you'd have to have the police involved at this point if they're not reviewing all the documentation, if they're just
Mm.
saying, okay, she just fell asleep, it was a single car accident. There's no reason for the police to be covering up anything, any wrongdoer, or covering up any foul play. I don't
No,
believe so.
no, I agree. I don't think so either.
So is it the fact that there's just not enough evidence to go down the path of
Mm.
potential foul play? That is that why it's just ruled a single car accident?
I
I
think,
don't know.
yeah, the problem is, I suppose it's proven. Suspicion is one thing, but unfortunately, evidence is another, and you can't push a case through the courts unless you've got sufficient evidence to do so. And that's the issue: is
Right.
that what evidence have they got that this was foul play? They don't. I mean, it's suspicious.
They
Yeah,
don't.
it's suspicious
It is
that
suspicious.
she's
Yeah.
having these kind of things, but at the same time, how can we prove that? How can we prove that she was having malicious phone calls? How can we prove that she had that paperwork with her at the time? She had it at the first place. They've already said that she had the paperwork with her, but how do we know she didn't leave it somewhere by accident? Because she's not feeling great. She's had a bump in her car earlier. she's doing something and she forgets the paperwork. It could be as simple as that. It could not be
Yeah.
nefarious at all. It could be something really
Yeah.
simple, and those documents are sitting on a shelf somewhere. It could just be
True.
that simple. But
I mean, is it possible to? Here's the thing: like, without seeing the crash scene photos,
that's right.
how the car
Yeah.
was. Is it possible that the documents had been thrown from the car and they were just had been
Yeah.
collected and thrown away?
Yeah.
I mean, there's numerous things that could have happened. I think I think she would have 100% had those documents on her because of how
Wow. Yeah.
important it was to her.
Mm.
I couldn't imagine her just like forgetting it back at the cafe, handing them off to someone else, um, just misplacing them. I think she would have had them in the car. But the question is what would have happened
Yeah.
to them after the accident? Um, were they gathered up inside the car and placed with other personal items that were never picked up? Like I
Yeah.
said, were they thrown from the car? It's hard to say.
Of course, and I mean, if you look, and if you're in England, there's a television documentary series called Crash Detectives, and you can
Hmm.
watch the collision unit actually in their job, and the way the technology that they've got. I mean, even in the 70s, the expert knowledge that the people that investigate crashes have is mind blowing. Like the way that
Yeah.
they can determine direction of travel, speed, time, acceleration, all that kind of thing. They are very, very highly skilled at their jobs. And so I
Hmm.
would I would say that they very rarely get it wrong. I would very rarely get it wrong. They are,
Yeah.
highly skilled individuals. And so there's going to be evidence that she braked at a certain time, she didn't brake at a certain time, she was going at a certain speed. This will all be synonymous with, say, falling asleep, or this would be the kind of thing that they would expect to find when somebody loses consciousness and wakes up again. It's science. You can't argue with the science. That's the problem. For us, we're like, yeah, something's going on. Her family, they want to know why. They want to know what happened. They
Yeah.
want to know why. And if you think even the tiniest bit that there's been some kind of foul play, you're not going to let that go until you have got hard evidence to prove otherwise. And so I don't blame
Yeah.
them for fighting for everything, because that's the one thing in this case. I could be persuaded that it was just an accident, but the fact that those paperwork are missing, that's the bit that makes me think something's not quite right here.
At the request of the Atomic Energy Commission and the Oklahoma State Medical Examiner, who at the time was Dr. A.J. Chapman, who
Mhm.
was concerned about performing an autopsy on someone reportedly contaminated with plutonium, a team from Los
Yeah.
Alamos Laboratory was sent to make radiation measurements and assist in the autopsy. Now, because Karen's death was an accident, the coroner did not legally have to get consent from the next of kin to perform the autopsy. However, Karen's father was contacted and he did give permission for the autopsy over the phone. So, if anything, at least there's one nice thing that happened that they actually called dad and said, "Hey, is it okay if we do this?" And he gave the okay.
Yeah,
Now the
because why wouldn't you?
autopsy.
You want to know.
I know exactly, right? Like, hey, we want to do an autopsy, even if they don't legally have to do it, right? Just hey, we
Yeah,
want to
get
do
the
this. Is it
answers,
okay
get the
with you?
science. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Now, the autopsy was performed on November 14th, 1974, at the University Hospital in Oklahoma City. Now, findings would find significant distribution of plutonium 239 in her lungs, as well as her tracheobronchial lymph nodes. The findings would indicate that Karen had been exposed within 30 days prior to her death. Part of this was because 6 times more plutonium were found in Karen's lung than in the lymph nodes. So, if you know
Oh, I
about
see. So yeah, it
anatomy,
hasn't got. Yeah,
it
that's right.
it's not it's going to end up in the lymph nodes. But yeah, so if you find more in the lungs and the lymph nodes, that means that whatever's in
It's
the
more
lungs have
recent.
not made its way to lymph
Yeah.
nodes yet. So this is interesting once again, right? Because they said that she was exposed within 30 days of her death, but the plutonium samples that they found in her, like I said before, she had no access to that for the past 4 months. So
Yeah, that's interesting. She had no access
That
to it
is
for 4
very
months,
interesting.
yet she's still got. And the thing that here we go again, another rabbit hole, is the fact that if the staff can come out of there with the plutonium
Mhm.
rods, what's to
Yeah.
say that somebody isn't constantly feeding her a little bit of plutonium at home or
A little
somewhere
bit at a
else in her
time.
car? Yeah. Could
Uh,
it be that they
yeah.
leave bits of it in her car, or I don't know. It just makes you think. All of a sudden, now this isn't as straightforward as it first may have seemed.
Yeah, and I don't, I don't want to make a joke, but is someone putting stuff in her bologna and cheese sandwiches? Because this is what she's bringing for
Yeah,
lunch, right?
that's
She's
right, and
she's
they know
bringing
it's
bologna and cheese
hers.
for lunch.
Mm. Yeah, that
So
makes sense. It's an
is it?
easy way to get it to her in a drink that she has every day, or in food that she has every day. It's left unattended in the fridge. How hard would it be for somebody just
Yeah,
to slip a bit of something in that?
yeah. Because here's the thing, like it'd be very easy for Karen to prove that the facility
Yeah,
lacks safety measures
very.
by simply taking plutonium pellets and walking out the front door,
Yeah.
right?
So she could prove it a lot
She
easier than
doesn't
contaminating herself.
contaminating herself.
Mm.
Exactly. So why would she purposely contaminate herself if she can just say, here's some pellets, I'm going to take them out and I'm going to take them to show this
Yeah,
New York Times reporter, hey, here it is, here's plutonium. I just walked out the front door.
yeah. That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane. What's even crazier is because of public suspicion in the death of Karen Silkwood, this would result in a federal investigation of plant security and safety.
Good.
This investigation would find that 20 to 30 kilograms, which is 44 to 66 pounds of plutonium, had been misplaced at the plant.
44
20,
pounds.
20 to 30 kilograms, 44 to 66 pounds of plutonium
Wow.
had been misplaced at
Just
the plant.
misplaced.
Oops.
Wow. That is a lot. I mean, you could say like a small amount is misplaced, but 44 to 60 pounds of it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
that's a lot.
how do you even do that?
No idea. I mean, it could be simply like they're just not, there's no controls over the
Yeah.
facility.
Yeah, that's right. It certainly sounds like that.
So once
That's
again,
scary.
when we started this, I said I wouldn't want to work in plutonium,
No.
right? Especially like the manufacturing of plutonium pellets or fuel. This clearly
Mm.
clearly proves my point.
Yeah.
Stay away. I don't want
Yeah.
anything to do with that.
No, I agree. Me too.
Yeah. Now, Karen's estate would file a civil suit against Kerr McGee for alleged inadequate health and safety programs that led to Karen's exposure. The first trial would begin in 1979, where lawyers for Kerr McGee would claim that Karen had purposely contaminated herself. This is, and this is horrific for what they did or said about her. The defense attorney for Kerr McGee, William Paul, would argue that Karen was emotionally unstable and possibly had been affected by the use of tranquilizers. He
Oh
would
dear.
further state that Karen had become deeply involved in a bitter fight between her union and the company and charged that she had set out to prove that the plant was dangerous by making herself seriously ill.
Mm.
She was, as he suggested, kinky.
Good God. That's really clutching at straws. That's really not that's not an adequate defense, is it at all?
No, no, you're disparaging a woman who you contaminated because
Mm.
your health and safety protocols are garbage.
Yeah.
And then you're going to try to disparage her name in
I mean,
court.
even that. I mean, the audacity of doing that in court, the likelihood of that being true sounds ridiculous to me. I don't know Karen, but even if I didn't know everything else that had happened, the likelihood of her being kinky and that's the reason, that just sounds like I don't know who came up with that. It sounds absolutely ridiculous.
Look, I don't know. Like, we have listeners out there that might be kinky, right? I
Yeah,
don't know if like purposely contaminating yourself with
I don't.
radiation, plutonium,
I don't think
is a
that's right
kink
up
that
there.
anybody has.
No,
No.
exactly. I don't think so either.
I
That's just
mean,
stupid.
it's insane.
Mm.
It's insane. Well, you'd be happy to hear that the jury would ultimately award the state of Karen Silkwood $10.5 million for personal
Wow.
injury and punitive
Mm.
damages.
Okay.
However, this would later be reversed by the Federal Court of Appeals in Denver, Colorado, which would then award a measly $5,000 for personal property she lost during the cleanup of her apartment.
That's insulting, isn't it? That is
It
really
is
bad.
very insulting. Yes. It's horrific. Like,
That's just,
oh,
that's just
sorry,
insulting.
you got contaminated. Here's $5,000 that,
Even the millions, even the millions is not going
oh,
to be, not going to bring her back. It's not going to make up for
no.
the fact that, she's lost her life. But then to take that away and to say, oh, well, we'll give you $5,000 for the personal items that you've lost, never mind your life. That's just
Mm-hmm.
insulting. That's
Yeah.
terrible. Shame on them.
Now, in 1986, this was 12 years after Karen's death, the civil suit was heading back to retrial when it would be finally settled out of court for $1.3 million,
I mean,
which
I'm
is
glad her
not
family
enough.
got some compensation, but that's not enough. It's not for the loss of her life and the fact that the truth hasn't come out. Everybody, they still tried to disparage her in court. I think I'd be ploughing that one point
Mm-hmm.
whatever $1 million to try and find the truth, because that just doesn't sit well. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. Now, in 1976, this was 14 months after Karen's death. And I guess this sort of kind of vindicates what Karen was doing the whole time.
Yeah.
The Kerr-McGee plant would close when Westinghouse, which had been buying its fuel rods, complained of their poor quality and refused to renew its contract with them.
Good.
So once Westinghouse pulled out, Kerr-McGee would completely shut down. So,
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, it took another 14 months. So we don't know how many other people in that 14 months ended up contaminated and don't know what happened to them. But at least it did shut down, because there is no place in this world for any sort of, plant
Shoddiness. That's right.
that is working with such dangerous materials to be to be
Yeah.
shoddy.
Yeah.
We
There's no
don't need that.
excuse.
So, mm-mm. So I mean, Karen was completely right in everything she was saying.
Yeah, she was.
100%.
And it's really annoying that, she lost her life, but they still didn't admit that, they were failing. There was no there was no admitting that we've done things wrong, and we need to clean up our act, because 14 months later their work is still being described as poor. So they didn't learn a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad.
No,
That's really
100.
bad.
No, they learned nothing. Learned absolutely nothing. Karen Silkwood would become a posthumous celebrity,
Okay.
and she would inspire a 1983 movie called Silkwood, in which she was played by Meryl Streep. Okay.
Wow.
Um, and so the movie actually would garner, I believe it was 5 nominations in total for the Academy Awards that year. They wouldn't win, but I mean, being nominated is huge,
Yeah.
anyways. But this, I mean, the movie was star-studded. You had Meryl Streep as Karen Silkwood. Kurt Russell played Karen's boyfriend, Drew, which we mentioned. Cher was in it. Craig T. Nelson. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that were in this
Yeah.
movie.
Did they dedicate the movie to her? I hope they did.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
glad.
So
Let's never
it
forget
was,
her.
so it was about her. Yeah. So once again, 1983 Silkwood.
I'm going to go and watch that.
A
I'm going to
really
find
good,
it.
yeah, it's a really good movie. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you haven't heard of it, or maybe you have seen it before but you may forgot about it, go back and watch it again and see what you
You'll
think.
watch it with
So,
a different. You'll now watch it with a completely different, a completely different insight to it now. So it'll be quite interesting to go back and watch it. Yeah, I'm going to look for that. I think I'm glad that there is some kind of legacy for Karen. I'm glad that there's somebody, someone out there has immortalized this story so that
mm,
everybody's, people can hear about it for generations to come, because she stood up for what was right and ultimately lost her life. And
yeah,
we all know the phrase "see something, say something," and she did, and look what
yeah.
happened. And she was, a good person. So
I
I
mean,
feel
this may have
I
been
feel
foul
bad.
play. It may not have been foul play, but
It's
regardless,
definitely
this is a story
suspicious.
that people. Yeah, it is suspicious, but it is a story that people need to know, and they need to know
Oh
about
yeah,
Karen, and they
yeah,
need to know what she did. And I
yeah,
mean, if it wasn't for Karen, um, it's possible that that facility could have continued,
yeah.
going on and on and on, and who knows what would have happened, right? How many other people would have been exposed to dangerous levels of plutonium, to radiation? Um,
Yeah,
you need to take safety serious. I mean, in anything you do, safety is important, and especially in that line of work. And
especially
they
yeah.
obviously they obviously didn't think what they were doing was wrong. They probably thought that what they were doing was enough, but it wasn't.
We need more Karens in the world.
Good Karens.
That's what we need. More good Karens.
Yes, I agree.
Ah,
So,
thank
Cherry,
you.
that is our case.
That was a really
Like I said, I don't
interesting.
know. I
That was
mean,
really interesting. Thank you.
I don't know if this even needs to be one where it's like, let's find out what happened to Karen, because regardless, I think a good outcome came from it in one way or the other.
Yeah.
I think that she, like I said, she did amazing work, and she brought forth serious issues that needed to be addressed, and
And
they
if you've
eventually
seen the
did.
film, I'd love to hear. We'd love to hear what you thought about it. We'd like to know. You can send us a message on our socials, or you can email us. We'd like to know what you think of this story. Do you think that it was an accident, or do you think that there was more to it than this? Somebody who this week has sent us an email is a Karen, actually, Karen Malik, who is from
Oh,
St. Louis. So hello
ooh,
Karen and her husband. And she emailed to say that she loves the podcast and that they are newly addicted, her husband and her. I love that.
oh,
Thank you guys for listening. Now, Karen has been a nurse for 25 years. She worked in the Burns
okay.
ICU and she's now a school
Oh,
nurse. And she has just emailed to say that people do some awful things to children, and she's given us a case to look into.
mm,
So I will give you those
okay.
details because it's an American one, and then you can have a look
American.
and see what you think. So hello to Karen, hello to her
Yeah.
husband, listening in St. Louis. Thank you guys so much for finding our
Yes. Thank you.
podcast
Thank you.
and listening. We really, really appreciate it. We've got a little bit of business to do before we go to what we always do at the end of our shows, and we go to our dumb criminal. This week, I've got something to quickly tell you guys about. I recently read a really good book from a debut author. And it was called Blood on the Broadcast. And it's about, it's kind of like a locked room mystery set in Belfast. And it's written by somebody called S.D.W. Hamilton. And I was sent an advanced reader copy of this to read. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a really good book, and it was about a podcast. And it was very, very cleverly written. I've never been to Belfast, but I feel like I have now. It's so descriptive, and it's very cleverly written in that, like, once I started, I couldn't put it down. So if you're looking for a new book, because people do often message me and say, you guys know I read loads, and they message and say, have you got any recommendations? So yes, I've got a recommendation for you. It's called Blood on the Broadcast. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Goodreads. You can find it everywhere. And it's really good. So I highly recommend a really good crime thriller for you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay. So we do you want to do Dumb Criminal first, or do you want to talk about our show news first of all? What do you want to do?
Um, let's talk about our show news real quick.
Okay, so as you guys know, we have been going through some different changes for the two of us. And as you know, Morgan is in America, I'm in England, so we have a big time difference to contend with when we are researching and writing our show. So whilst I am currently in training until around the end of May, we are going to be moving our show to once a fortnight, because time constraints for us and the physicality that I'm not actually physically here to do it at the moment is making things a little bit difficult for us to be able to record every week. So we are now going to be moving to a 2-week schedule until I finish the training that I'm currently doing. To make sure that we can still bring you a show that is properly researched and we can do the victims of crime the justice that they deserve when we're telling their story. You know, if you've been a long-term listener to us, that we do spend a lot of time on our research and we put 110% into that, and we would never bring you a case that we don't feel that we're comfortable in sharing with you because we haven't done the research on it. So for a while, it's not forever, it's just for a few months whilst I am away, because I'm away all week. Just for now, we're gonna go to 2 weekly, and then we'll be back to normal as soon as I've finished.
Yeah, it's just 3 months. That's it.
Yeah, just for a while.
We would love
we
to
will
do it.
be.
Yeah, we'd love to continue doing it every week, but it's
Oh God, we'd like to
it's
do it every
difficult.
day if we
So
could. Yeah, it would be good to bring you. There's so many cases that we want to talk to you about, and there's so many cases that need bringing to the spotlight that if we could do it every single day, then we would. But
yeah,
unfortunately, we are across an
we
ocean.
we do not have a team behind us. We don't have
It's
writers. We don't
just
have
us. That's
researchers.
right.
We have us.
Just
That is
us.
it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So yeah. So we write, we research, we record, we edit, we do all of it ourselves. And sometimes being a parent and sometimes general normal jobs do take up a bit more time than they usually do. So unfortunately, we're going to do it. But we still want to bring you guys great content, and we still want to tell stories from people that deserve to have their stories heard. So with that in mind, let's get to this week's Dumb Criminal to cheer you all up.
Hey, criminal, you's a dummy.
This week is brilliant, right? This week's Dumb Criminal, I think, is probably one of my favorites in a long time, okay? So a Colorado crook carrying thousands of dollars of stolen merchandise walked straight into the hands of the police after he was caught trying to use an Uber as a getaway car.
Oh no.
Seriously,
Oh.
I watched the video. There's a video to this, right? So he was ransacking a plumbing store in Denver. Okay. I think this was like last week or the week before. The store owner called 911 after noticing that there was a hole cut in the fence at the business. Okay. He then was looking at the surveillance footage and found this guy inside his plumbing facility. So he called the cops. The local police turned up. They are Wheat Ridge Police. They arrived on the scene and discovered an Uber driver parked just around the corner of the plumbing store. So the Uber driver told the cops that his passenger Jose was headed right towards the car. So the police officer says, "Hi, this is on body cam footage." He says to the guy, "Are you looking for an Uber?" And the man, right, who's got his hood is pulled up. He's got this like black sweatshirt on, and he's got a balaclava pulled down under his chin, right? Looks sideways and puts his hands in his pockets. And he's like, I mean, there's a whole video of this on the internet. You can find it. And he says like, no, I'm not looking for an Uber. So the officers ask him, like, what's your name? And he says, oh, my name's Raul. And he like starts going backwards, like just walking backwards, and then the officers grab hold of him, and then when they spoke to the guy inside the store, he described what this man was wearing, and there it was actually Raul who had done it. The contents of the backpack, even though he was saying he hadn't done anything, was full of Milwaukee tools. So he had more than $8,600 worth of electric tools in his backpack.
Yeah. Oh my
What an idiot! You phone an Uber to be your getaway driver, and then the Uber driver gives him your real name. It's just so you just
Yeah,
gonna
he's right
write
there.
it.
Yeah, and doesn't don't Uber drivers like when Uber drivers are picking someone up, don't they actually like have like an indicator of where the person is?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, oh yeah, there he is right there.
Just robbing the plumbing store. It's crazy.
Oh
But he
my
comes out and pretends
God.
that it's not him. Well, hang on a minute, mate. You've got all the tools that are missing from inside the plumbing store in your
Nope.
backpack. So it wasn't
I'm
me.
Raul. My name is Raul Milwaukee.
No.
I own Milwaukee
Yeah.
Tools.
That's right. So I just thought I would bring you a
My
little bit of
God.
cheer with some of the dumbest criminals this world has ever seen. And this is happening as close as last week. So it's still going on, people. It's still going on. If you want to submit to us a dumb criminal, we would gladly receive them because they literally make our week. So you can send them over to us. Lots of people send us videos of stuff. It's been brilliant. So if you want to find that, all you need to do is just go onto Google or another search engine that you might need and just put in Colorado plum base burglary, and it will come up, and you can see Raul in action.
Raul. Then wait, is it Raul or Jose? Which one is it?
No, his name's Jose, but he called himself Raul.
Jose, but Raul.
So
but
he's actually called
like,
Jose.
No, I am Raul.
My name is Raul. Raul Milwaukee.
My name is Raul.
These are my tools. So yes, thank you so much for listening to us. Our next episode will be me in 2 weeks' time, and I will be bringing you another case from the UK. So for now, in the break, look after yourselves and be nice.
And bye.